DWR Strategic Reliability Reserve Agreements. Welcome to Jorge Luis Quintero.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I am Jorge Quintero with the Department of Resources, serving as a Principal Engineer in the Electricity Supply and Strategic Reserve Office. This is the first quarterly update to the Commission regarding current...
Apologies, Jorge.
Oh.
Apologies, Jorge. If you could turn on your video.
Oh.
There you go.
Sorry, my apologies for that. I thought it did it automatically. This is the first quarterly update to the Commission regarding current and planned investments for California's newly created Electricity Supply Strategic Reliability Reserve Program. While my focus will be on DWR's activities with respect to this program, there is considerable coordination with the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, and the California Independent System Operators. This is a team effort. Next slide, please. This all started in 2021 with the Governor's Proclamation issued on July 30th, 2021, in response to more frequent and compounding effects of climate change, such as continuing wildfires, ongoing drought, and extreme heat conditions facing California. An energy supply shortage of up to 3,500 megawatts during peak periods was projected beginning the summer of 2021. DWR was tasked with bringing additional resources of energy online to address potential grid shortfalls and to help keep the lights on and air conditioning running so millions of Californians can stay safe during extreme heat events. As directed by the proclamation, DWR procured and installed 120 megawatts of new generation at 2 locations within Northern California. That is enough electricity to power up to 120,000 homes. The program was created under Assembly Bill 205, which was signed on June 30th of 2022 and amended by Assembly Bill 209, which was signed on September 6th of 2022. These bills directed DWR in consultation with the Energy Commission and other state agencies to implement projects needed to establish an energy reliability reserve to be available during the most critical times of the day and year. The funding for this program was established through Assembly Bill 178 and Assembly Bill 180. The extension of the Diablo County Nuclear Power Plant was originally contemplated as part of the Reliability Reserve, but was removed by Assembly Bill 209 and moved to a separate funding stream by Senate Bill 846. While technically not a part of the reserve, the Diablo Canyon extension similarly serves grid reliability. Next slide, please. With DWR's successful response to the 2021 proclamation and understanding that potential shortfalls still exist for future summers, Governor Newsom directed DWR to use its expertise to deploy and manage additional energy resources to safeguard the statewide energy grid. DWR, as the 4th largest producer of energy in California, is now legislatively tasked to establish a more comprehensive program. The picture shown here displays 2 of the temporary emergency generators installed in response to the 2021 Governor's Proclamation. These 2 in particular are located in Roseville, California, and are interconnected to the grid within the jurisdiction of the Roseville Electric Utility. In total, 4 temporary emergency generators powered by natural gas and equipped with emission controls limiting air quality impacts were installed, providing up to 120 megawatts of electricity to the statewide power grid. These generators can be deployed quickly under emergency declarations by the California ISO. Operators can bring these units online within 5 minutes. These generators were first called upon during the 2022 Labor Day heat wave, which was a historic 5-day event. Next slide, please. This program is designed to support California's transition to a clean energy future and is temporary in nature. With extreme heat, fires, and droughts putting a strain on the statewide power grid, projects like these are a critical part of a broader effort across California to help make sure the lights stay on and air conditioners keep running. Projects under the program will result in a diverse set of backup electricity resources acting as an insurance policy for all utilities in balancing areas in the state. The program is planning to increase reserve capacity to over 4,000 megawatts in 2024 and over 5,500 megawatts in 2025. Next slide, please. DWR has been directed to invest over $1 billion for securing strategic energy reserves. DWR's investments include a combination of various projects and tasked to start with project selection all the way through to ensuring additional megawatts are available to the grid during peak emergency periods. DWR has been increasing its staff and contracting additional support to assist with managing and reporting on the entire portfolio of reliable reserve projects. This is a team effort, bringing multiple state entities together to work to keep electricity flowing to homes and businesses in California. Not only are we coordinating with our sister agencies, but we will be regularly reporting status through meetings like this and to the legislature. Next slide, please. Securing additional power comes from a variety of sources, including clean energy. The goal is to the cleanest energy possible. There are 5 distinct projects under the program. The first is related to extending the operating life of existing generating facilities planned for retirement. Procurement of replacement megawatts for some of these more mature plants has been slower than anticipated. And with the state's accelerated electrification, it is prudent to keep some of these plants online longer while we make our transition to a cleaner energy future. The second is new and temporary power generators of 5 megawatts or more. If a generator is operated using diesel fuel, the department shall not operate it after July 31st of 2023. The third is new energy storage systems of 20 megawatts or more that are capable of discharging for at least 2 hours. Examples include battery storage. The fourth is generating facilities using clean, zero-emission fuel technology of any size to produce electricity. These may include fuel cells. The fifth is to reimburse electrical corporations for the value of imported energy or import capacity products that were produced above market cost or in excess of procurement authorizations and requirements. Part of our selection criteria is driven by bringing available megawatts to the grid in a relatively brief period of time. Due to supply chain issues with the more advanced technologies, some of the first products to be implemented are centered on the first 2 categories and securing more imports. Next slide, please. Our 2022 investments include projects within 2 of the 5 categories: emergency and temporary power generators, and import energy and import capacity products. This included diesel fuel generators, aeroderivative gas turbine generators, and securing power imports through existing transmission corridors. We procured and oversaw the installation of 200 megawatts of natural gas-fired and diesel units that were ready to deploy during an emergency event. The natural gas units have emission controls. In the future, they can be converted to run on a blend of up to 75% hydrogen. We are working to keep these units available for future emergency events. The diesel units were available this year, but they are not allowed to run under the program after July 31st of next year. As such, they have already been demobilized. In regards to imports, California is not an electricity independent state. It imports greater than 26% of its energy from other states. This program helped to secure 1,400 megawatts through imported energy that might have not have come into California if left to pure market forces and regulatory restrictions. The import program is only valid between July 1st and September 30th of 2022, so we did not include it in our future plans. Its impact, as you will see in the next slide, would be of great benefit for future summer peak needs. Next slide, please. In 2023, our future investments include projects within 2 of the 5 categories: emergency and temporary power generators and extended operations of retiring facilities. In addition to keep the natural gas-fired units as assets in the program's portfolio, we have plans to install several more reliable natural gas generators with emission control technology. We are also looking to extend operations of facilities planned for retirement by the end of 2023. These megawatts are expected to be available for the summer of 2024. This includes extending the operating life of 6 once-through cooling steam units located in Southern California with a maximum capacity of over 2,800 megawatts. The next slide captures an annual look at our program's investments over the upcoming years. Next slide, please. Okay. In 2022, the assets under the program's portfolio provided a daily contribution ranging a minimum of 554 megawatts to a maximum 1,400 megawatts during the 2022 Labor Day heatwave event. Looking forward to 2023, there is an increase in the emergency and temporary generation, but you can notice the gap without this year's import program. Beginning in 2024, we see the larger contributions for the facilities that were originally scheduled to retire. I will make note that this graph does not include efforts related to Diablo Canyon power plant extension, which would kick in after 2024. Next slide, please. That concludes DWR's presentation. We are available for any questions. We also want to let you know that the representatives of the CPUC and the California ISO are also in attendance if there are any questions regarding the forecasted need or associated regulatory requirements. Thank you. Our next updates are scheduled for the start of the first quarter of 2023. Next slide, please. If desired, please follow us on social media via Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that update, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue. Let's open it up to commissioner and guest discussion, maybe beginning with Mark Rothleader.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and Jorge, thank you to the CDWR team. It really was important to be able to ride through and get through the summer in a reliable way. We look forward to working with you and your team in the future years. I think it's important to also mention that this is a program that is complementary in addition to the resource adequacy program. And that is the primary primary approach of meeting reliability needs. But this is an approach that really takes it to a next level to be able to ride through those more extreme events, whether it be weather events, fire events, and so forth that are being driven by climate change. So we really appreciate CDWR's engagement, and again, looking forward to working with you in the future on development of this to help the reliability of the system. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to comment? Colin Wood, Vice Chair Gunda.
Chair Hochschild, I'm here to support Mr. Quintero, but I don't have any comments myself.
Okay. Any other reactions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just want to take a moment to thank the DWR team and really reiterate what Mark Rothleader just said. And I want to call out specifically Behzad, Ted, Tony, and Jorge for their excellent work this summer to rapidly deploy the resources to help this summer. And I think there's an opportunity here to just lay a few things together, and also thank our CEC team specifically, both the siting team as well as EAD, who's been working with DWR, and Commissioner Becerro, whose office has been supporting on the permitting side and stuff. So just wanted to say a big thanks to everybody who's been working on this, Kaiso for your consultation, and Pete and CPUC team. So in terms of 30,000 foot level, we just came out of a oversight hearing on Monday, just about the reliability status, and rightfully so. While we have the opportunity to build a strategic reserve, given the time sensitivity and given the resources available to build the strategic reserve, there is a reliance on fossil fuels, and there has been a strong request from the legislature and the communities to decarbonize the strategic reserve to the extent that we can. And I just wanted to acknowledge the comments from both the leadership at the legislature as well as the communities who have raised those concerns. It's important to note that as we think through building the strategic reserve, our hope is to decarbonize it as we move forward. Apart from DWR's funding, there's also funding for CEC through the distributed generations assets program, and then also the DSGS program, which is the DSGS program, which is the demand side load reduction program at CEC. Both of them are hoped to be cleaner, and we're working together to figure out a kind of a stacking order on how to deploy the cleanest of the emergency resources first before going into resources that are more harmful. Just wanted to note that as an important element, both on the recognition that these are break glass measures that we're relying on, not necessarily measures that we want to rely on, but we're in the situation where we have to hold on to some of these assets for the reliability concerns. And as we move forward, I think agencies together will work together as well as we can to make sure we decarbonize the assets that we have to get through the emergencies. And overall, once we get past the 2026 timeframe, through 2030 timeframe, as the discussions on Diablo continue, we have to figure out a strategy on how to tackle both the tail ends of the demand, which are these needle peaks that we're going to continue to see because of climate change, but also the risk from fire and drought. So it's an important element for all of us to work together, not just the agencies, but the stakeholders to figure out solutions. And I think the next item number 4, that David Earn is going to speak, is going to go to some of that. So hopefully, we continue our path towards clean transition, but also clean emergency resources. So with that, I just want to thank again, Jorge, thank you for your presentation. It was very clear, and look forward to continuing to work with everybody.
Thank you, Vice Chair. That was really well said. Let me just see if Pete Scala or any other commissioners, if anything else you'd like to add or contribute. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, no, so my name is Pete Scala. I'm Director of Electricity Procurement, Supply and Costs at the PUC in the Energy Division. I'm here representing for President Reynolds, who couldn't be in today because she's at the COPs and maybe traveling today. So she didn't have any prepared remarks, but I just want to echo everything that Vice Chair Glinda said and Mark Rothleader said. This is a great resource to have in the toolbox, not to compete with the RA programs, but to complement them and provide those break the glass resources when we need them in times of great grid demand that are outside of our traditional planning reserve margins. So it's been great working with DWR.
Great. Commissioner Vaquero, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you for the presentation and just appreciate all of the comments so far. I kind of wanted to go backwards a little bit to that 2021 emergency proclamation that was mentioned in the presentation, because I think that was really the beginning, I think, of some very just tremendous teamwork. CEC, our siting division, DWR team. We also had partners with PUC, California Air Resources Board, local air districts, developers like generating partners, as well as utilities, really, work shoulder to shoulder to figure out how to get this work done. And it's carried through to today. And I think it's just really, for me, important to recognize how much non-public facing organization, coordination was required. And, DWR really sets a high bar for project management. I think Vice Chair Gunda name checked a few people. There's a tremendous team involved, but a really high bar for project management that I think our team at the CEC has been able to learn from and implement as well. I've been following this since I was an advisor to Karen Douglas and in my role as commissioner, and am just so proud of the outcomes, but proud of what the teams have done together and what I think we're going to be able to do to ensure reliability moving forward. So really, thank you for the presentation and everyone for the hard work.
Oh, really well said. Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else wishing to make a comment? If not, thank you all, and thanks for the presentation. I'm glad that we're on a regular quarterly schedule for these check-ins, so look forward to continuing the dialogue. All right, thanks everyone. We'll turn now to item 4, information item on the request for information on investments in clean energy resources for statewide reliability. Welcome, David Earn.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give you an overview of a request for information that we put out last week to solicit information on clean energy resources to address a number of different requirements that we have. You can go to the next slide. So as Jorge mentioned, there were a number of number of bills that were passed this last summer that affected or addressed reliability. And he mentioned some of them in his overview. There are a number more that are impacting or provide requirements for CEC. And we're going to go through some of those today and talk about the need for those. We held a workshop on October 28th with the CPUC, CAISO, and DWR to cover these legislative requirements and talk about the activities that need to occur to address them. The key theme across all of these requirements is the need to evaluate potential clean energy resources to support reliability between now and 2035. So that's the general theme. Most of these assets that we're going to look at are assets that would be available all the time, not necessarily just during emergencies. And so differentiating that from some of the requirements of the strategic reserve. Next slide. As I mentioned, there are multiple requirements for CEC that are established this summer and actually one last year that are requiring us to take a look at and compare different clean energy resources and how they might be providing a value to the grid as well as customers. Two of the key ones under SB 846 are to develop the Clean Energy Reliability Investment Plan. This plan will be provided to the legislature by March and would be informing potential funding of up to $1 billion for clean energy resource deployment in the state. The next one is comparison to Diablo Canyon. So another requirement we have is to provide a recommendation or provide an analysis to the legislature by next September that looks at at resource alternatives that could be deployed that as compared to extending Diablo Canyon. We also have a requirement, ongoing requirement to consider clean energy resources in our reliability analyses. We have another requirement in SB 423 to cover firm resources and provide that to the legislature next year. And of course, information that we gather will be utilized for our SB 100 report, which is due in January. So multiple legislative requirements, all asking us to take a look at and compare different clean energy resources to support grid reliability. As part of the RFI that we put out to collect information, we provided a preliminary list of resources and asked questions about whether those are the right resources we should be considering, whether they're ones we should add or ones we should take away. We also asked for information about the attributes for evaluation, so how we can evaluate and compare these different resources against each other. We also asked for information on costs and availability of the resources. And lastly, we included some information or some questions to help inform the development of the Distributed Electricity Backup Assets or DEBA program. Next slide. I'll just quickly go through a number of slides just to show the kinds of resources that we've identified thus far. We separated them into supply resources, demand resources, and those resources that are both supply and demand, depending upon how they're used. So we're asking for information from the public about these resources, other ones that we should be adding, as well as any that we should be taking away, and also information on their performance. So this was supply analysis. Next slide. Next is the demand resources, number of controls, demand response, demand flex, thermal storage, et cetera, including efficiency. And the next slide, slide 6, covers those that are both supply and demand. So depending upon how these are utilized, these distributed technologies could be applied as both a demand resource, or they could provide supply depending upon how they're hooked in. Next slide. We also asked for feedback on the attributes. So we want to be able to qualify each of the attributes of these technologies and to be able to compare them. We created a list of attributes that we want to consider and we think are appropriate to consider. The first 5 we refer to as our achievability factors. So it's really the ability to get these resources on the grid and provide support now or in the future. So some technologies may be available now, some might be available in the next 5 or 10 years. We're considering out to 2035. So we want to be able to capture both those that are commercially available now and those that might be commercially available within that time frame and understand how those can be deployed. We're also looking for attributes to help us understand the cleanliness, how easily they can be dispatched, and how they can provide support to equity communities. Next slide. This just gives a list of or the description of the definitions of each of these attributes. So these are the ones that I refer to as achievability. Next slide. These are the ones that the remaining attributes that we're going to be evaluating we put out. And lastly, the next slide. We'll be considering a qualitative analysis of these technologies. So We'll be considering, as I mentioned, availability and when we can get these technologies on the grid. So we'll have something like a X or a check mark to identify how readily available they are. And then we might use something like the Harvey Ball approach you've probably seen in consumer reports to qualify each of these other attributes to be able to compare the technologies. Part of what we're also required to do is identify the barriers and provide recommendations on overcoming barriers. So just because something shows an empty Harvey Ball doesn't necessarily mean that it is a problem or is a resource that we don't want to deploy. It might mean that we have to identify ways to overcome barriers to get that technology on the grid and providing value quickly. Next slide. We also provided a list of questions for quantitative analysis of the technologies, essentially looking at cost and availability of these technologies for deployment between now and 2035, and recommended that individuals can provide information in different ranges of information, such as low, medium, or high costs and availability. So we can get some perspective on how quickly we can get these technologies out and what they might cost to do a cost comparison. We also asked some questions about the development of the DEWA program, so that we can help inform the development of guidelines for that program, which is part of the strategic reserve. Next slide. The RFI went out last Monday. Responses were due by the 30th. Anyone who is interested to provide input to us, please refer to our docket, our reliability docket, which is on the slide here, where you can see our RFI, and you can also provide your resource or your information back to us that we can utilize in our analysis. Next slide. We will be taking that information, conducting a review of all the public information and the information that we're gathering along with our consulting firm, Guidehouse. To conduct the analysis, we anticipate having a preliminary review in December in a workshop to give an overview and solicit additional feedback. And we'll be having more public opportunities for feedback on these resources as we move forward for different purposes. As I mentioned, we have multiple deliverables. The Clean Energy Reliability Investment Plan is due in March, and the comparison to Diablo Canyon is due in September. So those are two key ones that this will all inform. So with that, I'll finish with my overview, and I'm open to any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, David. That was terrific. Can you go on mute? Thank you so much. That was terrific. Not sure where that background noise came from. So both items 3 and 4 are non-voting information items. We don't typically take public comment on the non-voting items, but Vice Chair Gunda has requested we open that up. So let's do that at this time. We'll open up for public comment both on items 3 and 4. So anything related to the Strategic Reliability Reserve and procurement of clean energy resources for reliability. Dorothy, if you could open up the line, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair. So for individuals that would like to make a comment, if you are on Zoom, use the raise hand feature. It looks like an open palm at the bottom of your screen. And for those calling in on Zoom, go ahead and press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. We will unmute your line on our end. And please spell your name, give your affiliation, if any, for the record. So going to give that one moment. All right, I see Claire Warshaw. Please spell your name, give your affiliation, and you may begin. That's Claire Warshaw. We cannot hear you on our end. All right, we'll hold there and we'll move to Daniel Drazen. Apologies if I've misstated your name. Please spell your name, give your affiliation. You may begin your comment.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Daniel Drazen. I'm with Enchanted Rock. We are a microgrid developer. I just had a question for Mr. Quintero concerning if he could maybe explain under the Emergency Temporary Power Generation Program involving the 5 megawatts or more, I believe he said that at the end of 2023, that diesel backup generators would no longer be permissible under the program. And I was wondering if he could explain if that's the case or not.
That is correct. The legislation states that the availability of being able to do diesels ends in 2023, July 31st. So thereafter, the fuel of choice for the program would have to be anything besides diesel. So looking at cleaner fuel.
Okay, and just real quick, which legislation did you say that was?
That's within AB 205 and AB 209.
205, 209, gotcha. Well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dorothy, you want to see if Claire is still trying to
Oh,
speak?
apologies. Apologies, I was speaking while muted. Next is Sophie Magayon. Apologies if I've misstated your name. Please spell your name and give your affiliation.
Hi, my name is Sophia Magayon, and I am a resident